The veteran who bought an old ship, then his dog found a secret buried inside. He thought he was just buying an old forgotten ship, one more relic to remind him of the sea he used to call home. But when his loyal dog started barking deep inside the hull, the old veteran felt something he hadn't felt in decades: fear and memory. What they uncovered wasn't just metal and rust. It was a secret buried beneath 40 years of silence. The autumn wind carried the scent of salt and rust across Charleston Harbor, stirring the faded flags along the pier. Samuel Drake stood at the end of the dock, his weathered hand resting on the railing, staring at the old vessel that bobbed weakly in its berth. At 63, the retired Navy chief still carried himself with the upright bearing of command, though his shoulders had curved slightly over the years. His face was all lines and silence, each wrinkle a record of battles fought, both on the sea and within. A faint scar cut across his left jaw, a souvenir from the night his ship caught fire off the coast of Saigon. He had lost men that night, and though the decades had washed away the smoke, the guilt never left him. Beside him padded Rex, a 12-year-old German shepherd whose once black coat had grayed around the muzzle. His amber eyes still gleamed with loyalty and quiet vigilance. Rex had served with Samuel during his years as a base rescue dog, fearless in storms, gentle with the wounded. Now his steps were slower, his breath heavy, yet he still mirrored Samuel's steady patience. The vessel in front of them was a relic, its hull peeling, the number faded, the deck swallowed by moss and rainwater. To any other man, it was junk. To Samuel, it was memory made visible. He reached out, touched the corroded railing, and whispered, "You've been waiting for me, haven't you?" The wind answered with a hollow moan from deep inside the ship, like a voice calling his name from 40 years ago. The echo of the wind still haunted the pier when Samuel stepped onto the ship's worn deck, Rex trotting close behind, ears pricked. The wood groaned beneath their weight, releasing the smell of oil and salt trapped for decades. Samuel switched on his flashlight. Its weak beam cut through the gloom, catching swirls of dust dancing in the stagnant air. "Easy, boy," he murmured, but Rex's fur bristled as he stared toward the hatch that led below. The dog let out a low growl, a sound deep and uncertain, before bounding down the narrow steps. Samuel followed, his hand brushing the rusted rail, heart thudding with something between fear and reverence. The lower deck was colder, the air heavier. Faded markings on the wall spoke of the ship's past life, supply numbers, evacuation routes, names half erased by time. In the corner, a section of the hull bore a metal plate nearly obscured by corrosion. Samuel wiped it clean with his sleeve and froze as the letters emerged. U.S. Arlington, 1969. The name struck like lightning through his chest. He had served on the Arlington. He had walked this very floor before the explosion took everything. His flashlight wavered as he noticed something glinting under a broken crate. Pulling it free, he revealed a small tin box, dented and sealed with rust. Inside were 5 folded letters, 5 black and white photographs, and a tarnished Navy insignia. His breath caught. These were faces he had buried long ago. As he touched the first photo, Rex gave a sharp bark from deeper within the hold, the sound echoing like a warning. Something, or someone, was down there. The dim glow of Samuel's flashlight flickered against the rusted walls as he sat cross-legged on the cold steel floor, the tin box open beside him. The ship creaked with the rhythm of the tide, its bones sighing like ghosts settling in for the night. Rex lay nearby, his head resting on his paws, watching with wary eyes that gleamed amber in the light. Samuel pulled the first photograph closer, a young man with a broad grin and grease stains on his uniform. Jack Turner. He could almost hear Jack's laugh again, a bright, defiant sound that used to echo through the corridor oars. Jack had been 22, a ship engineer with strong hands and a mind that could fix anything except his own recklessness. The next photo showed Luis Ortega, short and wiry, with a smile that never faded even during storms. He used to hum old Spanish folk songs in the engine room, saying it kept the sea from getting lonely. Then came Eddie Malone, a lean sharpshooter with freckles and a crooked nose from a bar fight in Okinawa. He wrote letters to his mother every week, letters that likely stopped the day the Arlington went silent. Samuel's fingers trembled as he lifted the fourth picture. Tom Riley, his best friend. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes that burned with quiet conviction. Tom had saved his life once, dragging him from a fire while shrapnel tore through the deck. The last was Doc Harris, gray-eyed and steady, the ship's medic who never raised his voice but could silence panic with a look. Samuel traced the edge of each photo, the ghosts of his brothers in arms smiling up at him from the past. Outside, the wind howled through a broken porthole, and for a moment he could swear he heard footsteps above, slow, deliberate, impossible. Dawn broke over the harbor with a thin veil of fog as Samuel loaded the small canvas bag into his old Ford pickup, the tin box secured on the passenger seat beside Rex. The German shepherd sat upright, alert, his silvered fur catching the first light of morning as if he understood the gravity of their errand. Samuel's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, the faint ache of old injuries whispering beneath the surface. The road stretched long and quiet toward Savannah, Georgia, miles of pine trees and memory. By the time they arrived, the sun had settled low, gilding the small riverside houses in gold. He parked near a white cottage with sagging shutters and a porch swing that creaked in the wind. When the door opened, Martha Turner appeared, a frail woman in her late 80s with snow-white hair pulled into a loose bun. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, her back slightly bent, but her eyes, blue and sharp as broken glass, still held the stubborn spark of a mother who had waited far too long for closure. She wore a faded floral dress, hands trembling as she leaned on an old cane carved with initials J.T. Samuel removed his cap, voice low. "Mrs. Turner, I served with your son." For a heartbeat, silence hung between them until he handed her the photo of Jack in uniform. Her lips quivered as she traced the image. "He smiled just like that before he left," she whispered. The weight of decades cracked her composure. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks as she clutched the photograph to her chest. Samuel turned away, the river wind cold against his face. Behind him, Rex gave a low whine, and in the reflection of the truck window, Samuel saw his own eyes glisten like hers. The highway stretched endlessly through the Texas plains, golden grass waving under the relentless sun. Samuel drove in silence, the radio off, his thoughts heavy and tangled. Rex sat in the passenger seat panting softly, his gray muzzle pressed against the open window as if breathing in the scent of the long miles. When they reached the small town of Waco by late afternoon, the sky burned a deep orange, and dust hung in the air like memory itself. The address on the envelope led Samuel to a modest brick house at the edge of town. The door opened to reveal Claire Harris, a woman in her early 40s, her resemblance to Doc unmistakable. The same calm gray eyes, though softened by years of teaching. Her brown hair, streaked faintly with silver, was tied in a loose braid, and her hands still bore traces of chalk dust. She was kind, but cautious, the kind of person who carried her grief inward, turning it into gentleness. When Samuel handed her the weathered envelope, she hesitated before unfolding the letter. Her lips trembled as she read her father's handwriting, his final words never meant to be seen. "If you read this, Sam, take care of my girl." The paper shook in her fingers. He thought of me till the end?" she whispered. Samuel nodded, his voice low and steady. "He saved me that night. This was my debt to pay." Claire pressed the letter to her heart, tears falling silently. Outside, the wind picked up, stirring the dust into a small whirlwind that danced across the road. Rex let out a soft whine, as if sensing the farewell. Samuel looked toward the horizon, where the day's light was fading, and felt the weight of the years lift just slightly. When Samuel returned to Charleston, the city seemed quieter, as though the harbor itself was holding its breath. He parked his old pickup in front of the local police department, the tin box resting on the seat beside him, its metal now polished clean of rust. Inside, Rex stirred, stretching his aging limbs before hopping down, his tail wagging faintly. Together they entered the brick building, where the scent of coffee and paper hung in the air. Behind the counter sat Officer Daniel Price, a man in his early 50s with a thick mustache and weary eyes that spoke of too many night shifts. His uniform was neat, but his voice carried the casual skepticism of someone who had seen too many wild claims. "A lost Navy ship, you say?" he muttered as Samuel laid out the documents and photos. Daniel examined the papers, his brow furrowing as realization dawned. Within an hour, he had called the regional office, and the Naval Records liaison, Commander Helen Brooks, arrived, a sharp, composed woman in her late 30s with cropped blonde hair and a no-nonsense posture. Her uniform bore the weight of discipline, but her eyes softened as she read the serial markings. "Sir," she said quietly, "this vessel was declared missing in action. How did you—" Samuel simply replied, "I served on her once." The silence that followed was heavy with respect. Later that afternoon, under clear skies, he signed the donation papers at the South Carolina Naval Museum. "Let her rest here," he told Helen. "She belongs to them now." Rex stood on the deck of the Arlington, the wind tugging at his fur, and let out a single, long bark that echoed across the harbor like a farewell salute. The day of the dedication dawned bright and windless, Charleston Harbor glowing like a sheet of glass beneath the afternoon sun. Flags lined the dock, snapping softly in the breeze as families, sailors, and townsfolk gathered to witness the unveiling of the USS Arlington Memorial. Samuel Drake stood among them in his old Navy uniform, its dark blue fabric faded but pressed to perfection. The silver insignia on his chest, dulled by time, caught the light with quiet dignity. His back was straighter today. The burden of years felt lighter. Rex lay at his side, his fur brushed clean, a red service bandana tied neatly around his neck. The crowd's hum faded when Commander Helen Brooks took the podium, her voice clear and steady. "Today, we honor not just a ship, but the men who gave their lives aboard her, and the one who brought her home." She turned toward Samuel, eyes gleaming with respect. Applause swelled, and for a rare moment, Samuel smiled. A young boy in the front row, no older than 10, approached shyly to hand him a small American flag. His name was Eli, with freckles and the fearless curiosity of youth. He said his grandfather once served too. Samuel knelt, ruffled the boy's hair, and whispered, "Then keep his stories alive." As the sun sank beyond the horizon, painting the sea gold and crimson, Samuel felt a warmth that wasn't from the light. It came from peace. He looked at the Arlington, now restored, its name gleaming proudly, and imagined the silhouettes of Jack, Luis, Eddie, Tom, and Doc standing tall on the deck, saluting him one last time. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching, as if he saw them too. Samuel whispered, "We made it home." And for the first time in 40 years, he truly believed it. Life, he thought, is not about escaping the storms, but carrying the memory of those who braved them with you. If this story touched your heart, dear friends, share it with someone who still believes in honor, loyalty, and love that endures beyond time. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Silent Valor for more stories that celebrate kindness, courage, and the quiet heroes among us. May your days be peaceful and your sunsets golden.